My son locked me out of my own house to sleep with his mistress. He regretted it when I told his wife everything. I used to believe that family was the one thing you could always count on. Then I found myself trembling in the freezing cold outside my own home, listening to my son laugh while I begged to be let in. When he finally opened the door the next morning, the look in his eyes wasn't guilt. It was disappointment that his plan had failed. How does a mother survive the ultimate betrayal? And how far would you go to take back what's yours? If you're ready for an emotional roller coaster that will keep you on the edge of your seat until the very end, subscribe to the channel now and leave a comment below telling me where you're watching from. The bitter January wind sliced through my coat as I pounded on my own front door, my knuckles bleeding from the effort. Through the frosted window, I caught my son Christopher in a passionate embrace with a blonde stranger in my living room, drinking the vintage wine Robert and I had saved for our 40th anniversary. "Christopher!" My voice cracked as I banged harder. "I know you can hear me." The music volume surged, deliberately drowning my cries. My phone showed 12 rejected calls, each one a deliberate knife twist. When I pressed my face against the glass, Christopher looked directly at me, smirked, and pulled the curtains shut. "You're just a pathetic old woman," his voice echoed in my memory from weeks earlier. "Nobody listens because nobody cares." 5 months ago, when I invited Christopher, Vanessa, and my 10-year-old grandchildren to move in temporarily, I never imagined it would come to this. After losing Robert to a heart attack 5 years earlier, the house felt too empty. When Christopher lost his job, offering them shelter seemed natural. The shift happened so gradually, I barely noticed. At dinner, Christopher would interrupt me mid-sentence. "Mom, seriously, no one wants to hear about your boring volunteer work." The twins, Emma and Jack, began mimicking him, rolling their eyes whenever I spoke. Vanessa would shoot me apologetic glances, but remained silent. As I huddled against the biting cold, frantically searching for shelter, Christopher's words from a conversation I'd overheard kept replaying in my mind. The house should have been mine from the beginning. What did she do besides being his wife? When she's gone, everything will finally be where it belongs. I found temporary refuge in our garden shed, curling up between lawn tools and holiday decorations, my tears freezing on my cheeks. As the temperature plummeted to dangerous levels, one thought crystallized in my mind. This wasn't just disrespect. This was the beginning of something far more sinister, and I needed to survive the night to fight back. I survived that frozen night by wrapping myself in old drop cloths, shivering uncontrollably as dawn finally broke. When Vanessa's car pulled into the driveway, I emerged from the shed, my joints stiff and painful. Vanessa gasped when she saw me. "Martha, oh my God, what happened to you?" Before I could answer, Christopher appeared at the door, performing shock with theatrical precision. "Mom, where have you been? We were worried sick." "Were you?" I locked eyes with him, my voice unnaturally calm. "That's strange, considering you saw me through the window last night. What are you talking about?" His voice remained smooth, but his eyes flashed warning. "Mom's confused again," he told Vanessa, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "Remember how she got lost at the mall last month?" "I never got lost at the mall," I snapped. "See what I mean?" Christopher put his arm around Vanessa. "She doesn't even remember. It's getting worse." That night, I overheard them arguing behind their bedroom door. "She was hypothermic, Christopher. How could you not hear her knocking?" Vanessa demanded. "I told you we were watching a movie with the sound up." "Stop making me the villain here. Mom's been forgetting things, wandering off. She has frostbite on her fingers, which she wouldn't have if she'd remembered to take her key. This is exactly why I'm concerned about her living alone." I silently retreated to my room in my house, and locked the door, pushing a chair under the handle. For the first time in my life, I felt unsafe in my own home. The next morning, Christopher cornered me in the kitchen when Vanessa took the children to school. "That was quite a performance yesterday," he said, his voice eerily pleasant. "But let's get something straight. If you ever try to turn Vanessa against me again, you'll regret it." "Are you threatening me?" I asked, grip tightening on my coffee mug. He laughed. "I'm educating you. Vanessa believes me, the kids believe me. Who would believe a forgetful old woman over her concerned son?" He leaned closer. "The house keys? I took them from your purse at dinner. You never even noticed." As he walked away, whistling, I realized with chilling clarity, this wasn't just about disrespect or inheritance. My son was systematically trying to destroy me. I needed evidence of what Christopher was doing, but I couldn't risk searching his private office in the basement. He always kept it locked. Then opportunity knocked when Christopher's laptop chimed with an email notification while he was in the shower. Hands trembling, I clicked on the message from Steph with the subject line, Martha situation. Chris, attached are the updated papers for the guardianship filing. My friend at Shady Pines confirmed they have an opening next month, so timing is perfect. Once you're appointed as her guardian, we can list the house immediately. The staging company is ready whenever we are. Just make sure to document any episodes of confusion you can find or create. S. Attached was a legal document titled Petition for Guardianship of Incapacitated Person. My name was already filled in. My hands shook so violently I nearly dropped the laptop. Christopher was planning to have me declared incompetent, seize control of my assets, and ship me off to a nursing home. I quickly forwarded the email to myself, deleted it from his sent folder, and closed the laptop just as the shower stopped. That afternoon, Christopher brought me tea, something he'd never done before. You seemed tired today, Mom, he said with artificial concern. The tea tasted oddly bitter. I waited until he left, then dumped it in the plant when he wasn't looking. That night, I felt dizzy during dinner despite not drinking the tea. When I reached for the salt, I knocked over my water glass. See what I mean? Christopher said to Vanessa. Her coordination is getting worse. I realized with horror that he must have put something in my food. My vision blurred as I tried to stand. I think I need to lie down, I mumbled. I'll help you. Mom, Christopher said, gripping my arm painfully tight as he steered me toward the stairs. At the top of the staircase, he paused. His grip on my arm loosened as he positioned me at the edge of the top step. Mom, you look really unsteady, he said loudly. Be careful not to... In that moment, I realized his plan. One push, disguised as a failed attempt to catch me, and I'd tumble down the stairs. A tragic accident. My heart pounded as I felt his hand shift position on my back. Christopher, a voice called from below. Phone call. It's urgent. It was Vanessa. As Christopher hesitated, I twisted from his grip and clutched the banister. I can manage, I insisted, pressing against the wall until he reluctantly went downstairs. That night, I wedged a chair against my bedroom door again and made a call to the only person I could trust, my oldest friend, Helen. Helen, I whispered, I need help. I think my son is trying to kill me. Helen arrived the next morning with Philip Gardner, an elder law attorney with steel-gray hair and vigilant eyes. Martha, these allegations are extremely serious, Philip said after I showed him the forwarded email. If we're going to stop this, we need concrete evidence of Christopher's plan. How do I get that when I can't even access his office? I asked. You don't, Helen interjected. You play his game better than he does. Philip nodded. From now on, you're going to act exactly how Christopher wants you to act. Confused, forgetful, dependent. You want me to pretend to be incompetent? The idea was repulsive. Just enough to make him overconfident, Philip explained. Meanwhile, I'll petition for emergency medical evaluation with an independent psychiatrist. My documentation, not his. As they outlined the plan, Vanessa unexpectedly arrived home. When she entered the living room, Christopher's name died on her lips as she saw Philip's legal pad. Mrs. Sullivan, Philip said smoothly. Thank you for contacting me about your will updates. As I was saying, it's important to review beneficiary designations regularly. Vanessa backed away. Sorry to interrupt. I just forgot Emma's science project. After she left, Philip lowered his voice. She'll tell Christopher about me. You'll need to explain why I was here. Remember, you're just updating your will. Nothing suspicious. That evening, Christopher cornered me in the kitchen, his smile not reaching his eyes. Making changes to your will, Mom? Anything I should know? Just updating some charitable donations, I lied. Helen recommended Philip. Christopher's eyes narrowed. Interesting timing, especially when you've been so confused lately. Have I? I asked, deliberately fumbling with my teacup. I suppose I have been feeling a bit foggy. Something predatory flashed across his face. You should let me help you with your finances. It would be one less worry. Maybe you're right, I said, hating every word. It's just, your father always handled everything. Christopher smiled, squeezing my shoulder with painful pressure. Don't worry, Mom. I'll take care of everything. That night, I recorded a video on my phone, detailing everything that had happened, including the night locked out and the accidental fall Christopher had attempted to arrange. I ended with the date and a clear statement. If anything happens to me, my son Christopher Sullivan is responsible. I emailed the video to Helen, Philip, and to myself, with instructions to release it if I disappeared or suffered any accident. This was no longer just about keeping my home, it was about staying alive. The next day, I accidentally left the stove on. I spilled coffee on important mail. I called Christopher by his father's name. Each manufactured slip reinforced the image of declining competence I wanted him to see. After my confused episode at breakfast, Christopher made a phone call I was meant to overhear. "Dr. Harris, yes, the symptoms are progressing faster. I'm concerned about her safety. Yes, next Thursday works perfectly." When he left for his networking lunch, I retrieved the hidden spare key to the basement from inside the hollow leg of Robert's antique desk, a secret Christopher never knew existed. My heart hammered as I unlocked his office door. Inside, manila folders lined his desk, Martha medical records, house appraisal, Shady Pines intake forms. I photographed everything with shaking hands. The final folder contained something unexpected. Printed bank statements showing $83,000 transferred from accounts I never knew existed to someone named Stephanie Reynolds. A noise upstairs sent me scrambling. I quickly locked up and returned the key to its hiding place. That afternoon, I visited a real estate office, claiming to be interested in selling property. When Stephanie Reynolds greeted me, I immediately recognized the blonde woman from that frigid night. "Mrs. Sullivan," she smiled without recognition. "What property were you considering listing?" "Actually," I responded calmly, "I'm interested in the property you've been discussing with my son." Her smile faltered. "Excuse me?" "My house, Ms. Reynolds. The one you and Christopher plan to sell after shipping me to Shady Pines." The color drained from her face. "I don't know what you're—" "Save it," I interrupted, sliding an envelope across her desk. "This contains copies of every document, email, and bank transfer between you and my son. I'm meeting with the police and the state licensing board tomorrow." "You can't prove anything," she hissed, mask of professionalism dropping. "Christopher said you're mentally incompetent." "Am I?" I stood to leave. "Then how did I find everything? You have until tomorrow to return every penny, or I destroy you both." When I arrived home, Vanessa was waiting for me, eyes red from crying. "Martha," she whispered, "I found something in Christopher's things. I think he's planning to hurt you." Before I could respond, a familiar voice spoke from the doorway. "Well, isn't this touching?" Christopher stood there, eyes cold as ice. "Mom, I think it's time we discussed your living arrangements. Permanently." Christopher's face contorted with rage as he slammed the front door behind him. "I always knew you'd be a problem," he snarled at Vanessa. "Christopher, what have you done?" Vanessa backed away, positioning herself protectively in front of me. He laughed, a hollow, frightening sound. "What have I done? I've spent 3 years planning our future while you whined about saving pennies." He pulled out his phone. "Steph, it's happening now. Bring the papers. Emergency situation." "Who's Steph?" Vanessa demanded. "My business partner," Christopher replied coldly. "And significantly better company than either of you." I stepped forward. "She's also the woman you locked me out for, the blonde from the real estate office." Vanessa's eyes widened. "You did what?" "Oh, Mother didn't tell you?" Christopher's smile was vicious. "She spent a night in the shed. Character building, I'd say." Vanessa lunged at him, but Christopher caught her wrist, twisting until she cried out, "Don't test me, Vanessa, not now." "Let her go," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. To my surprise, he did, pushing her roughly toward me. "Sit down, both of you. Dr. Harris will be here in 20 minutes for an emergency psychiatric evaluation. After he finds Mom incompetent, which he will, I'll be appointed her guardian tonight." "You can't do this," Vanessa whispered. "I already have." He pulled documents from his briefcase. "Everything's prepared. Judge Wilson owes me a favor. He'll sign the guardianship papers immediately." "The children," Vanessa began, "are at school until 4. By then, Mother will be on her way to Shady Pines, and you'll be packing." He checked his watch. "You have 30 seconds to decide. Cooperate and keep visitation rights with your kids, or fight me and lose everything." My mind raced. Philip and Helen wouldn't arrive for hours. Dr. Harris was clearly in Christopher's pocket. We needed time. "Christopher, I said quietly. "There's something you should know before you do this." His eyebrow raised. "A deathbed confession, Mother? Your father's life insurance policy, the real one." His expression flickered. "What are you talking about? Robert left $300,000 in a secondary policy. It matures next month on my 60th birthday." I was lying desperately. "The paperwork is in my safe deposit box." Christopher's eyes glittered with greed. "You're making this up." "Why would I? You're about to have me committed. This is my last chance to tell you about your inheritance." He hesitated, just as the doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw the blonde from the real estate office, standing beside an older man with a medical bag. Christopher smiled triumphantly. "Too late for negotiations, Mother. Your time's up." Christopher opened the door to reveal Stephanie and a thin man with cold eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Dr. Harris, thank you for coming on such short notice," Christopher said smoothly. "As you can see, my mother is becoming extremely paranoid and combative." Dr. Harris barely glanced at me. "Family-instigated emergencies are unfortunately common with dementia patients. I'm not your patient," I said firmly. "Denial is also typical," he replied, opening his medical bag. "Let's make this quick. The facility is expecting her within the hour." I looked at Vanessa, silently pleading. She stood, placing herself between me and Dr. Harris. "I'm calling the police," she announced. Christopher grabbed her phone, smashing it against the wall. "Stay out of this if you want to see your children again." In that moment, the twins burst through the front door, home early from their half-day at school. "Dad?" Jack froze, taking in the scene. Emma, always more perceptive, rushed to my side. "What's happening? Why is Grandma crying?" "Your grandmother is very sick," Stephanie interjected smoothly. "These nice men are going to take her somewhere to get better." "I'm not sick," I told my grandchildren, looking directly into their eyes. "They want to take away our home." "She's confused," Christopher insisted, grabbing Emma's arm to pull her away. "Let go, you're hurting me," Emma cried out. What happened next unfolded in seconds. Jack, protecting his sister, kicked Christopher hard in the shin. Christopher shoved him, sending the boy crashing into the coffee table. "Don't touch my son!" Vanessa screamed, lunging at Christopher. In the chaos, nobody noticed Emma slip away until flashing lights illuminated the windows. 2 police officers appeared at the still-open door, Emma clutching the hand of one of them. "Officers," Christopher began confidently, "my mother is experiencing a psychiatric emergency." "That's not what the young lady told us," the female officer interrupted, her hand resting on her holster. "She said her father was trying to kidnap her grandmother." "That's ridiculous," Dr. Harris protested. The male officer eyed him. "And you are?" "Dr. Harris, I'm here to perform an emergency psychiatric evaluation. May I see your medical license and the court order authorizing this evaluation?" the officer asked. A deadly silence fell over the room as Christopher and Dr. Harris exchanged panicked glances. "That's what I thought," the officer said, reaching for his handcuffs. "Everyone stay exactly where you are." The police separated everyone for questioning, taking Christopher and Stephanie to different patrol cars while an officer spoke with Dr. Harris on the porch. I sat in the kitchen with the female officer, Vanessa, and the twins beside me. "Mrs. Sullivan," the officer said, "your granddaughter claims your son was attempting to have you committed against your will." I nodded, pulling out my phone. "It's all documented. He's been drugging my food, manipulating my finances, and attempting to have me declared incompetent to take my house." Christopher's shouts echoed from outside. "This is a family matter. She's having delusions." The front door burst open as Philip and Helen arrived, exactly when we needed them most. "Officers, I'm Philip Gardner, Mrs. Sullivan's attorney," he announced, presenting his credentials. "I've filed for protective orders against Christopher Sullivan and have documentation of his financial exploitation." The male officer returned, looking grim. "Dr. Harris has no hospital privileges anywhere in the state, and the commitment papers are fraudulent. The nursing home has never heard of Mrs. Sullivan." Through the window, I watched Christopher's face contort with rage as he realized his plan was collapsing. He suddenly lunged at the officer, shoving him aside and bolting toward the house. "He's going for the basement," I yelled, remembering the documents. 2 officers tackled Christopher on the front lawn. As they handcuffed him, he screamed accusations. "She's manipulating all of you. The house should have been mine. Dad promised me." Stephanie attempted to slip away during the commotion, but Helen, of all people, stuck out her cane, sending the younger woman sprawling across the driveway. Oops, Helen said with savage satisfaction. Senior moment. As the officers led Christopher away, he locked eyes with me one last time. This isn't over, he hissed. Actually, it is, I replied, my voice steady. The emails, the drugged tea, the falsified documents, it's all evidence now. Something in my calm confidence made him finally realize the truth. I had outplayed him at every turn. Later, searching Christopher's office with the police, we discovered the full extent of his scheme. Forged documents, records of the sleep medication he'd been slipping into my food, and detailed plans to sell my house and divert the proceeds. We'll add attempted murder to the charges, the detective said, photographing the staircase where Christopher had tried to stage my accident. For the first time in months, I slept without a chair against my door. Christopher's arrest should have brought relief, but 3 weeks later, he was released on bail. His expensive attorney, paid for by an unknown benefactor, argued convincingly that the case was essentially a tragic family misunderstanding. I was in the garden with Emma when Vanessa rushed outside, face pale. He's called twice today. The restraining order doesn't stop phone calls. What did he want? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady for Emma's sake. To speak with the children. When I refused, he said, her voice dropped to a whisper. He said his father's friends wouldn't let him lose everything. That night, Philip called with disturbing news. Martha, the judge assigned to Christopher's case, is Gregory Wilson, the same judge he claimed owed him a favor. The prosecution's evidence is mysteriously incomplete. Documents are missing. A shiver ran through me. What does this mean? It means Christopher has connections we didn't anticipate. Important ones. The next morning, a black sedan with tinted windows parked across from our house. When Vanessa left to take the children to school, it followed them. At noon, a courier delivered an envelope containing a single photo of Emma and Jack at their school playground, taken that morning. No note, no explanation needed. The threat was clear. I was calling Philip when the doorbell rang. A distinguished-looking elderly man in an expensive suit stood on my porch. Mrs. Sullivan, I'm Walter Harrington, senior partner at Harrington & Associates. I represent certain business interests connected to your late husband. Robert was a high school teacher, I replied, confused. Harrington's smile didn't reach his eyes. He had other associations. May I come in? In my living room, he placed a document on the coffee table. This is a very generous offer for your property. 3 times market value. I suggest you accept it immediately. My house isn't for sale. Mrs. Sullivan, I don't think you understand. Your son's legal troubles can either vanish or multiply, depending on your decision. Similarly, your daughter-in-law's pending job applications might suddenly receive favorable responses. When I didn't respond, he added, or perhaps tragic accidents might befall them instead. Children are so vulnerable, aren't they? As he left, he turned back. You have 48 hours. Some offers don't come twice. Later, searching Robert's old files desperately for clues, I discovered a locked metal box I'd never seen before, hidden in the attic insulation. Inside was evidence that my perfect husband had led a double life, one that now threatened to destroy us all. Robert's secret box contained photos, documents, and a flash drive revealing a truth I could barely comprehend. My husband, the high school teacher I'd loved for 30 years, had been laundering money for a powerful real estate developer named Victor Harrington, Walter's brother. This is explosive, Philip said, examining the evidence. Robert documented everything: dates, amounts, properties acquired through fraudulent means. It's insurance. Insurance my son is now trying to collect on, I realized. Helen squeezed my hand. Martha, these people don't play games. We need to go to the FBI. Before I could decide, Vanessa burst in. Christopher's been released completely. All charges dropped. Judge Wilson dismissed everything this morning. My blood ran cold. They're making their move. That night, I made the hardest decision of my life. I sent Vanessa and the children to stay with Helen's sister in another state, then contacted FBI agent Diane Martinez, who specialized in financial crimes. Mrs. Sullivan, if what you're saying is true, this evidence could bring down one of the largest real estate fraud operations in the state, she said after reviewing Robert's files. But we'll need your cooperation for something potentially dangerous. The next day, Walter Harrington returned with Christopher beside him, smug confidence radiating from both men. Mother, you're being unreasonable, Christopher said. This generous offer solves everyone's problems. I want to hear more details, I replied, pressing the record button on the hidden device Agent Martinez had provided. Especially about what Robert was involved in. Walter smiled coldly. Smart woman, your husband moved certain funds through untraceable channels. Christopher has inherited his father's talents. And if I don't sell? Christopher leaned forward. Remember what happened to Helen's nephew last year? The car accident that wasn't really an accident? That could be Vanessa, or Emma, or Jack. You'd threaten your own children? I whispered. His smile chilled me to the bone. They're just leverage, Mother. Always were. As they laid out their entire operation, believing they had me cornered, neither noticed the red light blinking behind the bookshelf. Agent Martinez and her team capturing every word from the surveillance van parked down the street. Just as Christopher reached for the contract, the front door crashed open. FBI, nobody move. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of federal agents, evidence bags, and videotaped statements. The Harrington criminal enterprise began to collapse like a house of cards, with over 30 arrests across 3 states. Victor Harrington, the organization's head, was apprehended trying to board a private jet to a non-extradition country. Christopher, facing decades in prison, turned on his co-conspirators immediately, offering information in exchange for leniency. Your son has provided valuable intelligence, Agent Martinez informed me as we sat in her office reviewing my statement. But given the nature of his crimes against you, the best he can hope for is a reduced sentence. And Robert? I asked quietly. How deeply was he involved? Martinez slid a file across her desk. Your husband began as an unwitting participant. Victor Harrington approached him about tutoring his son, then slowly pulled him into their operation. The evidence suggests Robert tried to get out 4 years before his death. The heart attack, I whispered. We believe it may not have been natural causes, she replied gently. The timeline coincides with his apparent decision to compile evidence against the organization. I closed my eyes, absorbing this final betrayal. He never told me any of it. He was protecting you, Martha, Helen said from beside me. The box was hidden where only you would eventually find it. As we left FBI headquarters, Christopher was being led to a transport vehicle. Seeing me, he broke away from the marshals, lunging toward me with handcuffed wrists. "This is your fault!" he screamed, his face contorted with rage. "Dad always said you were too weak, too stupid to know what was really happening. He stayed with you out of pity." The marshals restrained him, but Christopher continued his tirade. "You think this is over? Their network is everywhere. You'll never be safe. Never." As they forced him into the vehicle, he locked eyes with me. "I should have pushed you down those stairs when I had the chance." Those words, the final confirmation of how far my son had fallen, should have broken me. Instead, I felt a strange calm settle over me. "No, Christopher," I said quietly. "Your father stayed because he loved me, something you've never understood. And despite everything, I loved you too." The look of confusion that crossed his face as the doors closed would haunt me forever. He had never comprehended love without condition, without transaction, without price. That night, alone in my house for the first time in years, I faced the shattered remains of my family and wondered, how do you rebuild a life from absolute zero? 1 year later, I stood in my remodeled kitchen, vibrant yellow walls replacing the cold beige Christopher had insisted upon. The smell of chocolate chip cookies filled the air as Emma and Jack burst through the front door, backpacks flying. "Grandma, we got picked for the science fair finals," Emma exclaimed, wrapping her arms around my waist. Jack added, "Our project on elder fraud prevention got the highest score." I exchanged a smile with Vanessa, who followed behind them. The circles under her eyes had finally disappeared, replaced by the confident glow of a woman who'd reclaimed her life. Her accounting firm was thriving, specializing in helping seniors protect their assets. "Package came for you," she said, handing me an envelope bearing a prison postmark. I set it aside, unopened. Christopher's monthly letters always contained the same mixture of excuses and blame. The FBI had eventually connected him to 3 other elderly victims whose homes had been stolen through similar schemes. His 15-year sentence had been upheld on appeal. Later that evening, my living room filled with my new extended family, the 8 members of SAFE, Seniors Against Financial Exploitation, the organization I'd founded using part of the restitution money from the Harrington case. Together, we'd already helped dozens of elderly victims reclaim stolen properties and rebuild their lives. To Martha, Helen toasted, raising her glass, who turned tragedy into purpose. The doorbell rang. Agent Martinez stood on my porch. "Sorry to interrupt your celebration," she said, "but I thought you should hear this from me. Christopher's requested a supervised visit. It's his right to ask, but entirely your right to refuse." I took a deep breath. "Tell him I'll consider it. On my terms, not his." After she left, I walked to my bedroom and finally opened Christopher's letter. Inside was a single line. "I'm sorry I wasn't the son you deserved. Too little, too late, but perhaps a beginning." I returned to my gathered friends, to the warmth and laughter of my chosen family. Through the window, I watched the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. At 59, I'd lost everything I thought defined me: my marriage, my son, my illusions. But in that stripping away, I discovered a strength that had been there all along. "Ready for tomorrow's testimony?" Helen asked. I nodded confidently. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.